Did you know that there's a worldwide epidemic going on, and it's not just physical illness, it's the belief that we're not enough. Most of us suffer from it, though we really don't admit it. There's a lot of shame associated with not feeling like we're good enough, but it's such an insidious idea that it's at the core of everything that limits us. We all have challenges, whether it be our health or career or relationships, but it's how we deal with these challenges that allows us to either stay stuck or to create the life that we truly desire. This morning, our speaker is going to help us understand how, with knowledge, tools for self-development, taking back the power and confidence that we are enough. Megan Benyo is an Air Force veteran, a licensed clinical social worker, a speaker, a trainer, host of the Blonde Bombshell podcast, I've got to listen to that, and founder of the I Am Enough movement. She's an Amazon best-selling author with her book, You Are Enough, 5 Steps to Move from Struggle to Strength. Megan has been featured on Sirius XM radio, TV and radio shows, multiple podcasts, as well as in various magazines. As a mental health therapist and transformational mind coach for over 15 years, Megan has both the professional and personal experience to help us level up. From our negative self-talk to positive self-empowerment. Get ready for You Are Enough, 5 Steps to Move from Struggle to Strength, and help me welcome Megan. Woo!
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to Margot and Cheryl for having me today. I'm super excited to be here. First, I always like to start my presentations with if there's any veterans or active duty members, please stand up so that we can acknowledge you and say thank you for your service. So you will hear my story in a little bit about my journey in the Air Force and kind of how I got here. And thank you for the nice introduction. I do a lot of things. I've been a mental health therapist for 15 years. I'm licensed both in Michigan and here in California. And I also am a speaker and a trainer. Now, you'll hear my whole story, and I literally started all of this 1.5 years ago. I was in corporate America for 15 years as well as the Air Force and left 1.5 years ago. So it's been an amazing journey, but also with a lot of struggles. And so I want you guys to think for one moment, a limiting belief that you struggle with. I want you to write it down somewhere. It can be anything. It could be one that sticks with you and has for many years. It could be a new one that just resurfaced. Would anyone be bold, I love that word today, to share a limiting belief that they're struggling with? Go ahead.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. I don't know what I'm doing, right? And how does that limiting belief keep you stuck?
When I attempt something new, I'm worried that other people are going to see that I don't know what I'm doing and they're not going to choose what I want to.
Exactly, right? How many of us have felt that way? I don't know what I'm doing. Believe me, I was there 1.5 years ago and I'm still there, right? Anyone else? Thank you so much. Want to share a limiting belief? Go ahead. I can't write. I like that, and I like yours, and I'm going to be teaching what we call as therapists reality testing our thoughts. I've got a bunch of handouts for you later after the break that we're actually going to go through, and one of them is reality testing those thoughts. Who is the person that created that thought, right? So let me, I'm not very good with PowerPoints, but, oh, there we go. So obviously we know everything about me, right? I'm going to talk a little bit later about this new movement that went international 3 weeks after launching it, and you guys will be a part of it today, which I'm really excited to share with you. This is my book. I wrote it, started writing it in February of last year and finished it in May and then released it in August and became a best-selling author. Today, special, $10 if you want it, and you get a bookmark and my signature and all that good stuff. Anyway, so Step one. So what I talk about is I share my story. So when I was writing my book, well, I never thought I'd write a book. Same thing. I didn't think I could write. I have a learning disability. I have an 8th grade reading level and an 8th grade math level. My guidance counselor in high school told me and my parents I should never go to college because I was never going to graduate. That was, I'm going to be 40 next year or next week. So like, I don't know how long ago that was. And at that time, that statement was my sounding board. I didn't realize, because I was young, what that statement was going to lead me to. All I knew is that I knew it was going to be tough. And this was the first of many struggles that I had. Went through college, got my master's degree. And of course, once I got my master's degree, don't think I did not copy that degree and send it to my guidance counselor and my resource room teacher and basically said, don't ever say that to a child again. But you know what? That limiting belief I had that he put in my head was motivation enough. I had a computer that would scan my reading. I had extra time to take my license exams, my own room. It was a struggle, even in my 30s. Now in my 40s, it is still a struggle, right? And I know we have some ADHD coaches in the house, so thank you so much for what you do. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 12, and it's a true thing. And there's so many different forms of ADHD. So if you're not, if you don't understand a lot about that, I really encourage you to actually do some education work. I know with the new DSM-5, some of the stuff with ADHD has changed, but it's a prevalent thing in our society. And I think sometimes it gets looked over. So that was my first struggle. Well, fast forward. I made the decision when I was 33 years old to commission as an officer in the Air Force. I was doing mental health therapy, and I worked for, who was the foster care person? I was a CPS worker, foster care worker for the state of Michigan for 10 years. So thank you so much for what you do, because I know that it's very, very tough work. And so I got commissioned, and it was always on my bucket list to live in California. And as we know, for those of us who are licensed, we can't just jump from state to state, right? We'd have to start all over. And I always wanted to serve my country. I wanted to be able to give back to those people who were on the front lines fighting for our freedom. So it kind of just fell in my lap, and sure enough, I got stationed at Travis Air Force Base in Northern California. Picked up my life. It was just me at the time in Michigan, where I lived my entire life. I know you're Chicago, so I'm from Grand Rapids. I'm sure you know where that's at. And moved up here in 2012 and provided mental health and substance abuse treatment to active duty members. This is where the good part comes, guys. And I'll get to the steps, don't worry. But I met a man. I was single. I did not go to California to meet a husband, but I did. And I love that there's relationship coaches in here. And I was lost, right? Career-wise, I've always been successful. I've been very, very blessed. But I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, and I struggled a lot with self-esteem and not being good enough. But let me tell you, I thought I was over that until I met my now ex-husband. I won't get into all of this because it's in the book. But what happened was he had an affair for 14 months of our 2.5-year marriage. I was so completely devastated. That's not even the worst. It gets better. I was so completely devastated, but I had made this commitment to him, right? So I'm like, I am going to work on this marriage. Little did I know that I was actually involved in a very narcissistic, abusive marriage. Even as a therapist, I did not realize what I was in the middle of. I would be seeing patients. I know ethically this is probably wrong, but one thing you'll know about me is I'm very authentic and real. But I would be on the floor in between patients, bawling my eyes out, right? I didn't know what was going on. I was not using my coping skills. So instead of me going get my own help, what did I do? I worked 40 hours, opened my private practice and a network marketing business. I didn't know what else to do. In that time, he kicked me out of our house twice, filed for divorce 4 times, and pulled the papers. And I had left the Air Force and started working at Kaiser Permanente up north, but was still trying to get back on track and like what was life going on, and I'm getting kicked out and this and that and everything. He finally divorced me in 2016, but the abuse got even worse. He would date me, right? He would act like he made the biggest mistake of his life. And I believed him. I stayed faithful and committed to him for 2 years after he divorced me. I was that traumatized. No clue. So then I decided to move to San Diego. I always had this nudging feeling. How many of you have had nudging feelings and you just don't know what it's about? How many of you have discovered what those nudging feelings are? Okay, I want to hear your experiences in a few minutes because this is a huge thing. I always had this nudging feeling that I was meant to do something more outside of the four walls of the hospital. I didn't know what that was. The nudging feeling I thought was move to San Diego. Not get rid of him, but move to San Diego, right? So I did. He begged me not to leave. And the abuse actually got worse even though we're 8 hours away from each other. So that was 2 years ago. And again, I got down here and I still had this nudging feeling. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm in San Diego. Like, I've got a great job. I was making a ton of money. What that negative or that nudging feeling was is that I had to walk away from him and also do something bigger with my career. However, the decision regarding my career was made for me. And I probably shouldn't have said the hospital name earlier, so just put that out of your mind. So what happened was I moved down here. I was 38 and working at Kaiser again, therapist for 15 years, veteran. I took a job transfer doing the exact same job, but I was on probation because I do that with everyone. And I take responsibility for this, I did a Facebook Live on Whole Food Nutrition in my office. Mind you, it was after hours. I never put on my Facebook where I worked, and it was a blank wall. Someone had it out for me, and I got fired. Literally 4 months after I moved here. I lost my 6-figure income. I lost everything. I was still trying to deal with my ex. I'm like, who am I? What is going on? 4 months after that, my ex came down here and said, I'm going to show you that I made the biggest mistake of my life. And I have a job offer down here, and I'm going to move down here. So I drove up to the airport to pick him up, and I prayed. This is the first time I ever asked God to take something away from me because I was so scared. And I said, Lord, if this is not what you want, you need to show me. The divorce wasn't enough for me to leave. The affair wasn't enough for me to leave. I just lost my job. My life is a disaster. And I said, if you show me, I'll leave. 24 hours later, he was in my house, and I found out, I saw a text message. Of course, he lied about it. He had moved in another girl a month before our divorce was final because I had never gone back to the house because he never let me, and was dating her for 2 years as she was living in our house. While he was dating me, I had no idea he existed. She existed 24 hours later. 4 months after I lost my job, I was broken. I had no idea who I was, what I was going to do. But that nudging feeling, A, was for me to walk away from someone that I loved, and B, not to return to corporate America, not to have my 6-figure job, because I could literally go and get a job as a therapist and make a ton of money. But that's not what my purpose is. I was in the process of rediscovering who I was. So in February of 2018, I said goodbye to him. I have not talked to him since, although he's threatened. There's all kinds of stuff going on with that. But anyway, and I started writing my book. Never thought that I could write ever. But I had started developing this program on my own and things that I work with my clients. And I decided to include the chapter that I call Mr. N, Mr. Narcissist, in my book because my book is my saving grace. That book literally saved me, along with me going back into my own therapy and getting the help I needed. But I worked through every one of these steps while I wrote my book. And it's why I'm here standing in front of all you amazing people talking about our limiting self-beliefs and how it can keep us stuck and what we have to accept. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Acceptance means a little bit different than what we probably think to get me to where I'm at today. How many of you have felt either recently or in your life that you're just confused and you don't know who you are and you don't know what to do? Yeah. And sometimes we get that in our business, right? So I jumped into entrepreneurship a year and a half ago. No clue what I was doing. Wrote a book, had no idea what was going to happen. But that nudging feeling was saying, trust the journey and trust the path, right? It's all going to come together. So discovering your true self is the first step. So in the book, I ask 5 questions or 6 questions. And honestly, I use these questions with clients because a lot of people come to us that are feeling stuck, right? And they may have depression and anxiety. But 99.9% of the time, that what causes our depression, anxiety, limiting beliefs, obviously, is our mindset and what we tell ourselves. So these questions are super important. So I asked these questions to myself when I was writing my book. I had to rediscover who I was. I had no idea. I knew that professionally I was okay. I knew that I was a good therapist, but personally, I'm like, I don't feel like enough. How can I be a therapist? I had to rediscover. Now, again, if you guys go to the website, then you guys can download this PowerPoint, and it actually has some of the talking points on it, but feel free to, take notes and that kind of stuff. So why do you think that these questions are important when you're reading them through? What comes up for you? Mm-hmm. To get to the core of it. Core of what? The issue. Go ahead. Exactly. What were you going to say? Mm-hmm. Exactly. When the book came out, I had a lot of my friends call me because I didn't let a lot of people see it. And they're like, I can't even do this first step. And I've had a lot of people say that because exactly right. Like, how many of us think about these things, right? Are you stuck in a dead-end job? I was living a mediocre life in corporate America and I had no clue, right? And then I started thinking, I was able to identify what that nudging feeling was. But that's scary. Yeah, I'm in a dead-end job, but what am I supposed to do about it? How many of you work with, as coaches, with career, trying to figure out with your clients what they want to do next? That's scary, isn't it? So those are some good questions. So what does it mean to discover your true self? It's basically what we think about, right? It means to find out, learn from experience, curiosity, moving forward, and growth. So it's very quick, right? Like the chapter's way big. And the one thing I love about the book is how many of us read self-help books? How many of us like highlight and write notes in the margin? How many of us just stick it in our drawer and don't do anything else with it? Sometimes. Maybe on the shelf drawer, whatever. What I love about my book is that I wanted to make it interactive. As a therapist, I didn't want to just share my story. I wanted people to actually start doing the work. So I pose questions at the end of each chapter with a place to journal so that people can actually start working these steps either by themselves or with a coach or with a therapist. And it's been amazing to get, people from all over the country, right? I love the fact that I'm working on this, but it's scary, and so it gives you that opportunity to start working on this. Step 2, visualizing your passion and purpose. When you start discovering your true self and who you are, what happens? Exactly. You can see things outside of your box that you never imagined before. Is it scary? Of course it is, and we're going to talk about that. But how amazing is that? For me, I was like, oh my goodness, he's out of my life. Yes, I'm broke. Yes, I had to file for bankruptcy because of him, and I'm okay with that, right? But I'm visualizing this amazing opportunity to help people around the world, around the country, by sharing my story and helping people believe that they're enough. I visualize that. And I never would have done that if I didn't rediscover who I was and if I didn't leave that one thing that was keeping me stuck. right? We all can be stuck in either career, relationships, health. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a person, but it's what we're telling ourselves that keeps us stuck. So before you ask the universe for what you want, you need to truly become aware of yourself and your purpose. When I was listening to all of you guys, I loved the statement of being bold. Every single one of you has your elevator pitch down like to a T, which is good, but it's your passion, right? None of you would be in here making this statement, your 20-second introduction, if you weren't passionate about it. You wouldn't be sitting here on a Monday morning if you weren't passionate about what you do. So think bigger. Where else can your passion lead you in your business? Is there something that you want to do that you're scared to do because you don't know what the result is, right? And a lot of us know, as coaches and therapists, visualization. I do a ton of visualization skills with my clients and myself, and we're going to actually get into that in a few minutes. So again, more questions to help guide you in figuring out what your passion and purpose is. And this is great questions to ask with clients. Again, feel free to use these questions to ask with clients. I just ask that you not make copies of the presentation. But again, my purpose and passion is to give back. So if you are working with someone who is really feeling stuck, ask them these questions. I guarantee you they'll be like, oh, I never thought of that. That's too hard for me. I don't want to think about that, right? Or ask them for yourself. 5 to 7 things you value the most. Part of rediscovering myself was that I had to rediscover my values. I lost everything about who I was. All I knew was I was a good therapist. Everything else. I was lying to my friends. People could tell like I was just miserable. I had to rediscover my values. And when I did this in this step, my 3 top values now are authenticity, integrity, and honesty. So how do I use this as a skill? Whenever I have a negative thought in my head, because although I'm known in San Diego and LA and all these people as the I'm enough girl, I still struggle with not being enough. So what do I say to myself when I have those limiting feelings of I can't do this? Or I'm not a good writer? I say, how is that thought, I'm not good enough, honoring my value of authenticity, integrity, and honesty? I can be honest about it, right? And I say to my roommate sometimes, I'm like, I just don't feel like good enough. And then she'll be like, well, read your book. Or, and I'm like, well, that doesn't help, right? Yeah, page 42. And so it's okay that we still struggle, but it's what do we do with that when we have those negative thoughts, right? So rediscovering your values, and there's a values exercise actually in the book, that was profound for me. Because everything I do, although again, I'm human and I'm not perfect, I try to do with authenticity, integrity, and honesty. And when this book came out, I will never forget when I pressed enter on Amazon and I'm like, everyone's going to know my story. I didn't think about that because a year and a half ago, I was this girl on social media, you know, this and that, although I never did selfies, which you guys will hear about in a little bit with the movement. But everything looked fine. I never even said the D word, the divorce word, for 2 years after. I wanted everyone to think I had it together because I was so miserable inside. So I have everything I do, for the most part, authenticity and integrity and honesty. I literally speak around the country and share my story. And you know, people say, doesn't it make you feel sad? It empowers me every single time I can share my story. There's days where I wake up and I'm like, I can't do this today. But then I use what we call my grounding skills, our grounding skills, which is step 3, to be able to move past those thoughts. So those are some great questions to ask yourself. This is my ultimately favorite step. Who knows what grounding skills are? As a therapy term. Yeah. So, I'll move those on. So I call it ground yourself. If you find yourself with a mind filled with racing negative thoughts, using grounding techniques will de-escalate your frenzied mental activity and help you divert your mind in healthy ways. So we ground ourselves every day. When we're sitting and we have our feet planted on the floor, right? There's physical, soothing, and mental grounding skills. I've been doing grounding skills, even though I didn't realize it, since my guidance counselor in high school told me not to go to college. It's things that we think about that we aren't realizing that we're doing. This is key. If you have clients, I want to encourage you to learn more about grounding skills, because this is where the mindset shift changes. Step 1 and 2 obviously gets you there, but this is what grounds your fear of moving forward, your limiting self-beliefs. Okay, go ahead. Oh yeah, we're gonna be doing that with the handouts after the break, but yes. So for example, for the next 15 seconds, in your head, I want you to think of all the ice cream flavors you can think of. Ready? Go. And stop. What were you guys thinking about? Peanut butter chocolate? Colors? So were you thinking about anything else? You were thinking about ice cream. That's a grounding skill. So I actually work, I know, right? It's that simple. And there's thousands of grounding skills. Actually, I have a handout on my website that's free with, it's a page and a half. Oh wait, actually no, it's in your handouts today. Sorry. Of different grounding skills. So like I said, there's physical, soothing, mental. I work as a contractor just 20 hours a week out of my home at a chronic pain facility up the road. I've lived with chronic pain since I was 17. I was in a horrible car accident at 17. 42 stitches in my face, all kinds of stuff. It was horrific. And I've lived with pain. I wake up, I used to be a bodybuilder. I live with pain every day, but I refuse to let it stop me. And what I love about this facility is that they added cognitive behavioral therapy as part of the treatment, right? So because if you live with chronic pain or you have a health issue or you're dealing with a relationship, we wake up in the morning and say, oh, this day is gonna suck. I have so much pain, right? Or I can't do today because I'm so sad or I'm so anxious, whatever that is. So it's important to retrain that brain, right? To be able to move into your strength, no matter what that struggle is. And it's amazing when I work with clients with chronic pain because literally they think their life is over. There's not one client that walks into my office that is excited about the future. They think their life is over. And they work with workman's comp, so you know, that's a whole nother ball game, but they do. What else can you do? I had to get to the acceptance piece that I could no longer bodybuild like I used to. I am 40, and let me tell you, my body's falling apart. My roommate is like, I don't get it. Like, you eat good and you work out, like, why is your body falling apart? It's just what happens. I had to come to that acceptance piece that I can't do the things I wanted to do. So what does the word acceptance mean to you when I say that word? Okay, yep. Surrender, yep. Go ahead. Being okay with what it is, exactly. So sometimes people think when I talk about acceptance is being okay that it happened, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that. For example, I had to get to a place of acceptance with my ex-husband. I still haven't gotten closure from him, right? He's never apologized. He's never taken responsibility, right? It was always my fault for everything I did. I had to get to the point, the closure came within me. And it was me saying, I am moving from being the victim although I never thought of myself as the victim, but I was like, oh, poor me, I'm not enough, this and that, to the acceptance piece. So it was about finding closure of the person I became when I was with him. That to me was closure. That to me was acceptance. I don't agree with what happened. I'll never be in agreement to the way he treated me. But if I didn't get to that place of acceptance and saying, yep, it happened. Yep, I grew up in a really dysfunctional, abusive home. Yep, I have a learning disability. Yep, my ex-husband left me and had an affair. Where would I be right now? I'd be on the floor in between patients, having my friends have to get me out of bed, right? That acceptance piece is not easy. And so if you are thinking of maybe a client that's coming into your head right now, or maybe yourself, getting them to that acceptance part is a phenomenal transformation. And reminding them it doesn't mean that you have to agree that it happened. It's saying, I am no longer this person, right? Even when you have chronic pain or health issues, sucks, it hurts, I hate it, but this is not going to define me. And I'm going to find other ways to create a life that I deserve and that I love. And that's where grounding comes in. So here are some useful grounding skills. And do I have time? Yes, perfect. Because this is where I kind of wanted to do the break. So coping cards. So again, I'm a huge visualization. I'm enough tattooed here. I've got everything happens for a reason tattooed here. I've got affirmations all over the place, in my car, everything. Because I too struggle with negative thoughts. So just how I had you guys do the ice cream, right? When you have a negative thought, sometimes we can't just tell ourselves, just stop thinking about it, right? We need something visual that we can repeat to ourselves over and over again, even if it's for 15 seconds, that is going to take your brain from that negative thought into something positive. As we know, every thought we have, consciously or subconsciously, creates our behaviors, our decisions, and our actions. If you take one whole day and consciously think about the negative things we say to ourselves in a day, it's astounding. And the ones that we don't realize, what happens? It comes out in behaviors, in relationships, in our motivation, in our energy, in our excitement. So paying attention to those thoughts, even though they're scary sometimes, is pivotal at this point. So coping cards. Coping cards, what do you think that means? Anyone have an idea? You guys are coaches? Huh? Mm-hmm. What do you think they say on them? You got this, right? So when you go, so I have on my website, again, this is a free download. I have the top 100 positive affirmations that I created from clients over the last 15 years, from myself, from my friends. And again, affirmations, there's kind of like a yes and a no, like yes, they work, yes, they don't. Again, when you're working with your clients, you are trying to find whatever skill works for them, right? Grounding needs to be done with every single client that you have. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, and it needs to be done for yourself, right? So I always say you have to have a lot of tools in your tool belt. You have to have a lot of coping skills in your tool belt, because one day, if you say, I am enough because, it may not work the next day, right? So encouraging people to find a lot of different coping skills. Coping cards, yes. Positive affirmation, change your surroundings, and practicing positive thinking every day. So I gotta grab my card here. You guys will get this when, after the break. So after I released my book, I was like, now what? It was exciting. I was on Jenny McCarthy and all of this stuff, like TV, radio was fun. It's still fun, right? But I'm like, okay, now what? Again, there is that restless feeling. I needed to give back more. I wanted to do something more. So because I'm a visual coping skill guru, I created what's called the I'm Enough movement. I created it 4 months ago. It went international within 3 weeks. It's so exciting, you guys. It's so exciting because what is this about? It's a visual coping skill. It's like a coping card, right? So I created these cards on the back, and you guys will each get one today. On the back, it says the word because with 3 lines. So you write why you're enough. Sometimes I have people that say, I can't do it. And I say, are you a mom? Are you a dad? Are you a friend? Are you a daughter? Because sometimes it's, I am enough because I got out of bed today. I am enough because I'm a good mom or a good friend. And then you start working with them on increasing even more statements. So the cool thing is you can go to my website or scan this little thing down here, and you get 5 cards for free. I ship them all over the world. I have just shipped to Sweden, Australia, the UK, Asia, a couple other places. Absolutely free. There's no monetary gain for me at all. I hand do the envelopes. I probably get maybe 10, 15 card orders a day. I just did it. There's an interview I was just on Good Morning San Diego talking about the movement. It's important for me not to have my assistant do these envelopes. So they're hand addressed by me because I want to give back. The other part of the movement is, so you get a card, and I encourage people to either keep all 5 for themselves. I have one in my car. I've got my roommate and have like 3 or 4 of them around the house. Either keep them for yourself or give them away as well. If you keep one card, carry it with you all day. Because when you feel like you can't do this business, right? I have one on my kitchen table. That's where my office is at. You know, how many of you work in an office in your kitchen table? Woo woo. Yes, it's great. So I have mine on my kitchen table, and sometimes I just have to pull it out and read it. Because I struggle too, being a year and a half into this. I don't know anything about websites and sales funnels, and don't even get me started on that. So it's okay, right? So the other part of this is, remember a little bit ago when I talked about selfies? Now, as we know in the entrepreneurship world, we have to get our face out there. People want to hear real, authentic, honest stories. I'm telling you, if you don't do that on social media yet, you need to, because the minute my book came out, my business flourished. Why? Not because I'm a best-selling author, not because I'm a therapist, but because I shared my story, as scared as it's been, but I'm doing it honestly and authentically. And so many people say to me, thank you so much. I didn't think anyone understood. So if all of you have a story, you don't know what your story can do to change people's lives. Now, I know as therapists and coaches, I think with coaches too, we have to do self-disclosure, right? We have to be careful about self-disclosure, especially as a therapist, right? I can't help that anymore. I have a book that tells my whole life story, right? I mean, I don't say, oh gosh, guys, as my clients, I don't tell them that. Usually they find it because they Google me or whatever. But that's the important piece, is how can your story change lives? Even if it's just sharing your story once. I guarantee you, the more authentic and real you are, the more your business is going to grow and the more you are going to grow as a human being. So on the back, so for all the years that I was in my marriage, I never did selfies. I'm still not a huge selfie fan, but I never did it. I never thought that I was good enough. I was just like, whatever. But once I started entrepreneurship, I realized I kind of got to do it, especially when the book came out and all of this stuff. So part of the movement is to take a selfie holding your card. And if you go to our Instagram page, I get selfies from all over the world. I was just at a Hollywood movie premiere on Tuesday I just got to give it a shout out. Wishman, how'd you hear? Who said that? Were you there? Oh, yes. So it's about Frank Shankowitz, who is the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I've known Frank for a couple months and also the star of the movie. So I was there on Tuesday. A couple months ago, Frank took a picture with this card, and so did the star of the movie. And so I was on the red carpet and literally doing pictures from these cards. Now, again, it's red carpet, so of course we were dressed up. I do not edit one single photo. I don't have a professional camera crew or a professional camera that takes these photos. Again, because I want it to be completely authentic. I have a picture on our Instagram page and I'm in my bathroom in my pajamas, right? Because it's all about being enough wherever you are in the moment. So I tell people when I do my phone, I'm like, I don't edit this, so, and I don't take one, I just take one. You don't get to do multiple. I don't even usually show them to people. Again, if it's really bad, I'm not gonna put it up there, but anyway. So you can send the photos to me. If you want one taken today, I'll take them today. They're just uploaded on the Instagram page. And then also I have a private group. It's called the I Am Enough Movement group. And all the pictures go in there, and then obviously on my Facebook. But let me tell you, this is such an amazing coping skill. So you guys are all gonna get one in your packets. We're gonna go through an exercise after the break, talking about step 4, which is creating your strength plan, which all of you guys have clients and probably have plans or treatment plans and things like that. So this will go into more of the grounding and self-care, time management, all of that stuff. And these are tools that you can take with you and use with your clients. So before we take a break, is there any questions or comments that you guys have? Or anything that you'd want me to touch on in the next, when we get done? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. With practicing affirmations? So we're actually going to get into that in the strength plan because I touch on both. Because positive thinking leads to positive self-talk, right? We have to learn how to retrain our brain and our thinking to be able to say those positive self-talk things. So yes, I'm glad that you had said that because yes, they coincide together. Thank you. Yes, I'm going to definitely do that at the end. I'm going to leave a couple minutes for question and answer. Billy and I talked about that outside, and I was like, feel free to jump in and help out at the end, because I've actually spoken at a certification coaching group as a therapist and talking about the difference between therapist and coach, right? And I still struggle with, do I tell myself I'm a therapist, like mark it as a therapist, or do I mark it as a coach? Because therapist has a negative connotation, but coaches are everywhere, right? So I still work trying to figure that out, but there's a huge distinction. And as a coach, there are things that you need to be aware of because you're dealing with human lives every single day. So yes, definitely we're going to touch on that. Anyone else? All right, break time?
Okay, take a 12-minute break and be back at 10. Okay, if we could start moving.
Can we do it right after? Because I have to go back up and speak. Yeah, I'll be here afterwards.
If there is not, raise your hand. So as you return to your seat, there is a packet from Megan. So as you get there, yes, because we made sure that you got a packet, but didn't work out the extra so you can get there.
Just worked out. Just worked out.
Thank you.
I know, come on guys. Jump up, let's get excited. So I know some people came in the back to purchase the book. Thank you guys so much. I don't do credit cards, but I do Venmo, cash, checks, if anyone has checks these days, or PayPal. So just let you know, and I'll be here. I do have to leave at 12:30 because I do have a patient at 1, but I'll be here at least till 12:30. Okay, so I just have to let you know, you guys are the first ones that are getting this strength plan. And why do you think that you're the first ones that are getting the strength plans? Because you are enough and you're special, and because you guys are coaches. So I speak at a lot of women's empowerment events, and Again, I would love to give this out to people, but I feel like this is something you need to use with a coach or a mentor or a therapist, just to kind of explain it for people. So you guys are the first. You're the first. Okay. So yeah, so you guys all got your cards. Again, if you want me to take a picture afterwards of you with a card, awesome. If you don't want to, that's okay. You can scan the back. It goes right to the Instagram page, the Facebook page, my website where you can order. You'll get 5 cards. If you want to order more, by all means, do that. And I would just love for you to help spread the message to anyone and everyone. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to talk about our strength plan. And like I said, this is all about, just after we've kind of worked through everything, we're discovering who we are, we're visualizing this passion and this purpose and what we want to do. We're learning to ground our negative thoughts, which again, we're going to get into more in a few minutes. Developing your strength plan. So as a therapist, I always have to do treatment plans. Do you guys do, as coaches, like plans with people, like goals and all of that stuff? Okay. So personally, in our personal life and as professionals, these are vitally important, these plans. If you yourself do not have a plan, you need to get one, because you can't teach and educate about plans if you're not using it. Now, again, you don't have to be perfect and use it every day, because I know I don't, but you want to have a plan for yourself. So what this strength plan talks about, and again, feel free to use some of the handouts in here at the end, and we're going to go over this, but there's handouts that are on here, things like that. But the first one that we talk about is, well, the first part was just the introduction, but talking about self-care and time management. So self-care tip number 1, it's, there's not page numbers, sorry. Yeah, 3. This goes into the reality testing our thoughts. So I'm actually going to turn this off. What? Yeah. So it's, I just realized they're not this one. So it's this top page where it says self-care ideas. Right. Well, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I was going to say that at the end in my ending spiel with everything that you guys are getting, but thank you for adding it now. Please give credit where credit is due. I appreciate that. It is. I appreciate it. I know, and I didn't, my assistant did this, so there's not all the branding on it, and honestly, like, I did it in a week, so. But yes, thank you. All my stuff on my website that has all of this has all the branding stuff on it. Okay, so let's talk about self-care tip number 1. So reality testing our thoughts. So like you had asked earlier, how do we do this? So in the first handout is what we call, has anyone heard about reality testing your thoughts? What is it? Can you explain it a little bit?
The way I use it is in regard to understanding your emotions. So your emotions are your fastest communication source to what is in your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And 95% of what we say, do, and see comes
Right.
from our mindset. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So if you are experiencing fear, that emotion, what is that emotion telling me?
Mm-hmm.
Because your emotions are always true, but not always accurate.
Right.
And that's where you self
Exactly.
by checking reality with
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts that you have.
Exactly. So it sounds, and I wasn't going to write on, do we have markers or no?
Yes.
I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it. Because it makes it a lot easier. Well, is this, can I use the purple or blue? Okay. Well, if I do this here, will you guys be able to see over here? Okay. So, and it's not going to be neat, y'all. Like, I am not a good board writer. Someone give me a negative belief. Well, let's just do the I'm enough, right? Or I'm not good enough, okay? So that is, of course it doesn't work. It's totally fine. Okay. I am not good enough. That is our negative statement, right? When you say that to yourself, what thoughts and feelings come up? Or what feelings come up for you? Fear.
Could be sadness, depression.
That's a big one. Okay. When we say that percentage, how much do you believe that? What's the percentage? When you say I'm not good enough? 60%? 70%?
It might feel like 100 though.
Yeah, it's
It might be,
right
100%.
in the moment, right? But yes, so in the moment, 100%. But when you look at, like, I look at the last 6 years, mine was probably 70%.
So we challenge it.
No, we're going to get to that. When you just say this thought, what is the percentage? So let's just put 70%. Okay, so now we're going to test this. So with reality testing, there's lots of questions you can ask yourself, but I'm just going to pick my favorite ones that I use with my clients and with myself. Who is the source that is telling me I'm not good enough? Who's telling you that you're not good enough? Who told me that I wasn't good enough? Well, he could, yeah, but I didn't start the I'm not good enough until like in my 20s, right? Okay. So everyone thinks it's a person. My ex-husband never told me I wasn't good enough. Those words never came out of his mouth. I created that story in my head that I wasn't good enough based on his behaviors and his actions and his decisions. So 99.9% of the time, the source that is telling us a limiting self-belief is us. We are not reliable, you guys. Unfortunately, we're not. Like, we have been trained to live negatively, right? I mean, it's just craziness. Why is it so easy for all of us, you guys have been so kind to me, to say nice things to me today, make me feel so welcome, but you can't say something nice about yourself, right? So when you have that thought, and the trick is to identify the thought and say, okay, the thought is here. Once you do this, you're going to be able to do it so fast, you're not even going to realize it, right? But it takes practice. So the source is me. Now, if you grew up in a home or had, you know, my guidance counselor, you know, or you grew up in a home where you had abuse or just a lot of dysfunction, blah, 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 you can go back with clients and do that. I would highly not. That's going to be something we're going to talk about later. That should be a therapist, especially with trauma and that kind of stuff. But again, you can ask them, who's the source that told you you weren't good enough? Say if, for example, it was my ex-husband or my guidance counselor or my mom, the source is still not reliable. Because my mom, I love her to death, grew up in a very dysfunctional home as well. She was taught what she did. My ex-husband, obviously, has some serious issues, right? He's not reliable, right? So you can still test the reality of that with even other people, right? It just takes a little bit longer time to get them to that place of believing it. Okay, so who's the source? What's the next one? I am not a speller, y'all. Remember, I have a learning disability. No, okay. What does that word mean?
Things bigger than they are, or exaggerating them in some way.
So my favorite quote is, it's not a bad life, it's just a bad day. Because think about it. We have a horrible day, and what happens? Oh, this happened 10 years ago, and that happened yesterday, and my life is falling apart, when in fact it's just one thing, right? So I'm not good enough. We can test the reality that that's not true because it's catastrophizing thinking. we're saying I'm not good enough, which affects every single part of our life, right? Instead of me saying I'm not good enough today because maybe I don't have enough energy or whatever, I was saying I'm not good enough as a friend, as a daughter, as a therapist. It affected everything I did, right? So for yourself and your clients, like teaching them, is this catastrophizing, right? And 9 times out of 10, it is. We catastrophize about things. There's so many, and I'm just like trying to. Yes. So we're retraining our brain to reality test the thoughts. So to say these thoughts are not true. Why? Because once you can do that, then you can go to the place, which we're going to do at the end, and create that statement on that vision card that says, I am enough because. So you're going through this process, and at the end, we're going to come up with a new statement. Okay, is this all or nothing thinking? What does that mean?
Black and white.
Is that all or nothing thinking? How come?
Based on its pervasiveness,
Mhm.
based on it feels like permanent.
Yeah.
As well.
So I'm not good enough, what keeps you stuck? Well, since I can't be in a marriage, I'm just not good at anything. I'm not going to do anything because my marriage failed. I'm not good enough, right? Based on emotion or fact? Emotion. So there's this great thing called, I'll do it here. Has anyone heard of the wise mind? Okay. So we have the rational mind, the emotional mind, and then the wise mind, okay? We'll put rational, emotional, wise. 99, I always say 99. I don't even know if it's the right fact, but I'm just saying it. Okay, maybe 70%, but I think it's 99.9%. Our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors are all based on emotion, if you think about it, right? Rational, we would love to be rational, but sometimes we're not. I am like the most emotional girl on the planet. So I'm emotional. I'm not a lot of times rational, right? My roommate, we call her the unemotional girl. We do. She is more rational, so we even each other out, right? The wise mind includes both the rational and the emotional mind together. This is what causes the reality testing, right? So are you in your wise mind? It's okay if we're not always in our wise mind, right? But that's what the rational, it brings in both, okay? So this is based on emotion, so we want to get to that place where we're more rational. What's the other one I like? Let's see. And I did fact, or is this based on fact or truth? Is there any fact to this?
Could be.
How come?
Sometimes, sometimes things are, there's parts of it that are true. That doesn't mean that's good.
So is this, if someone says I'm not good enough,
You
how
may not be a good speaker. You may not be an experienced speaker.
do you
So
think
feel
that
like you're not good enough, but you actually are a speaker, could get better, and just because you're not highly sophisticated right now. So it's more it's not the all or none, it's more the gray area.
but exactly, and that's what we're testing. So this thought is not ever true, you guys. It's never true. Because you said I'm not a good writer. You may not be the best writer, but that doesn't make you not good enough to be a writer.
And I want to clarify that because I just like writing because it's meaningful for me.
Oh, so
Okay?
yeah.
Not that I can't. And again, your point, reality testing. When I start getting all like this, and I have to write something, I lay down on the floor and I say, my emotion is fear. It's true.
Mhm.
It's inaccurate. And I start thinking about, okay, I've had a career for 30 years as
Yep.
a project manager. I've written and all those. Yes, I can write. It just for some reason just draws out
Mhm.
so much emotion, which you're that's my
Exactly.
example of what you're talking
And so you're taking time, which is what we need to do. That's a grounding skill. You're taking time to say, what is going on in my mind? I'm going to lay on the floor. I'm going to go through all of these things, test the reality of it, and say, no, this isn't true because, which allows you to get back to what you were doing.
That's what I do.
Good job.
Grab my phone, I say, okay, Google, 5 minutes. Then I'm still on the floor, I lay there for 5 minutes thinking about it. Usually when I get up, you know, like,
Good.
now I can
Good. One more quick question, and then we're going to have.
I don't do that, but I am a big emotion stuffer for years. So if I feel in my body fear or sadness, I do take them to the body. So how does that fit in?
We're getting to that point. We haven't even tested the reality of this thought yet. So hold on to that, okay? No, I meant hold on to that question. No, don't hold on to your fear, please. That means I would just be like discredited as a speaker and a therapist if I said, just hold on to that. Go ahead and leave. Just hold on to that. Just live with it. What is the evidence for? This is a big one. What is the evidence for this thought being true? But again, that goes back to source. And we know that ourselves, we're not reliable, right? Because like I said earlier, I created this story in my head based on someone else's behavior. No one in my life has ever told me I'm not good enough, right? That's why my book is called You Are Enough. That's why everything in my life is I am enough, because that was what I created in my head. So there is no evidence to support that this is true. Why? Because we know the source was me. We know it's catastrophizing thinking. We know it's all or nothing thinking, and we know it's based on emotion. It's not based on this, right? So usually the next question is, what is the evidence that the thought is true, right? Which is what we just did. So knowing all of these things, that the thought is not true, that I kind of just created it in my head, what could be a new thought? So this goes to going from the thinking, this is the positive thinking, this is that positive thinking step. Now we're going to creating a positive self-talk. We start with the thinking and we move to the self-talk, which is a grounding skill, right? So what could be something that we could say instead? Okay. So you want to be specific, right? So remember on the card where I said, I'm good enough because I just got out of bed this morning, right? That's where you start if you can't think of anything else of why you're good enough, right? So that's how mine started. I got out of bed this morning. I went to work and I saw 8 patients and I only cried once. I'm enough, right? Literally. And then everything else, like I struggle with not being good enough when I don't get my to-do list done. I'm like a complete organized freak and I'm very good at multitasking, but I get a lot of stress and anxiety when my to-do list is done. So Brene Brown, any Brene Brown fans in the house? Love her. I have this sign above my bed that says, no matter what I get done or is left undone at the end of the day, I am enough. So when I'm feeling like a failure because I didn't get my to-do list done, I am not a failure. Why? Because I'm telling myself that. No one's telling me that. I'm the source. It's not reliable. I'm catastrophizing because, oh wait, I got the stuff done on my to-do list yesterday, but now I'm like making myself feel bad today. My statement to get rid of that thought is the thing that's over my bed. So I read that when I go to bed and it kind of releases the stress. So I'm not good enough could be, like I said, I got out of bed this morning. I am enough for me means that today means that I am enough for me. And that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, although we are all coaches and we care so much about people, at the end of the day, you have to be enough for you to be able to go and take care of others, right? So I always use the plane analogy with the mask. Have you guys heard this one? I mean, you guys are coaches, so I'm sure you have. You know, the mask comes down and it says what? Help others. So we have to take care of ourselves before we can help others. Now, granted, just because we work on this positive statement and you have a rough day and these negative thoughts come in, does not mean that you can't help clients or, you know, you can't do anything, because we're human. Like I said earlier, I'm known as the I am enough girl, but guess what? There are days that I struggle with it. But I do this, test that reality. Does this make sense? Okay, I know we spent a lot of time on that, but that's like the biggest part of kind of this packet, right? Is because you have to move from that that limiting self-belief into the positive thinking, into the self-care. Okay, so the other handouts on here, hold on a second, is the grounding. When I talked to you guys about grounding, there's a handout on that. So I wanted to give you a couple more examples of grounding skills that I do. So it looks like this. So there's a bunch of different ideas front and back for grounding. So a couple things that I do, and again, feel free, Google grounding skills, whatever, and use it with your clients. You can use these examples as well. One of my favorite ones is, you guys all know Kathy Lee Gifford, right? So I'm not a big TV watcher, but of course I was scrolling through Facebook when her husband died, Frank. And she was talking about how Frank would always give rocks to people as a coping, like not a coping skill, but like his thing was, what do you want your legacy to be? And he would have people throw their rock in the water saying what their legacy was going to be. So I took it a little bit further. So again, feel free to use these, because not all of these are like my ideas. I've just changed them in a way. So I got a bunch of rocks, and I've used these for the last 7 years, 6 years, I don't even know. Really worked well with my substance abuse my substance abuse clients. So I specialize in trauma and substance abuse and chronic pain. So you get these rocks and you ask them if they want a rock, and they're like, what's a stupid rock for? I'm like, I'll give you a rock. However, you're not allowed to come back, and I don't want to hear that you threw it at someone. That's what I always tell them. But no, so the rock is what we call a soothing grounding skill. And it can also be used as a mental grounding skill. So you get this rock. How many of you, when you were little, colored on rocks as kids? Yeah, right? And then we'd keep them, right, as something to remember. Like, that's exactly what that is. So they pick a rock. I let them dump it all out. They pick one that they like. They can take more than one. As a soothing grounding skill, anytime they find themselves feeling depressed, anxious, sad, having a limiting self-belief, they pull that rock out and they use their 5 senses. I know it's a little weird with a rock and the smell part, but sometimes rock has smells. But you say, how does it feel? Oh, there's ridges in it. Oh, it's cold. What does it look like? What does it smell like? You can't hear anything either, but basically that part. And what do you see? So some people will write a word on there. So every time they touch that rock, they go to their whatever that belief is. So I am enough. Why? That's the big part, is if you say you're enough, you have to say why. You can't just say you're enough. There has to be a because after it. Because that's how we truly 100% believe that, right? So I am a good entrepreneur. Why? I'm a good entrepreneur because, right? Because I got my website up. Awesome, right? First stage, perfect, good. And as you keep going, that's going to increase. But that's why it's super important to put the word because after it. Okay? So back to the grounding, or the rock. So that's what they hold. It reminds their mind.
I don't know why.
You have a rock?
I do.
You guys, everything happens for a reason. That's why it's like on my arm. What do you do with it?
Well, you know what? I always have found myself to kind of like look for rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I'm always in my head so much. And so
I don't know, it is. It's definitely, it kind of just brings me back. I guess I never thought of it as grounding.
The grounding skill.
But yeah, so I find like in my purse, different
Yeah.
things, all of a sudden I go, okay, I have a rock. So it's like, yeah, so I happen to have one. Just to
That's amazing.
So yes,
I love it.
there's a reason.
There's a reason. Mhm. Mhm.
Which is the act of listening
Mhm.
to yourself, somebody else.
Right. Agreed. So again, there can be a lot of different things. I use rocks. For example, I had a client who, a substance abuse therapist or a substance abuse client who got a DUI and lost his license. His grounding skill every time he wanted to drink was his car key. Saying, if I drink again, I'm never going to get my license back. Right? So it can be anything. The cards, the I am enough cards. Again, physical and mental grounding skill, right? If you're taking a walk, so a lot of my patients, I deal with a lot of depression and anxiety. You're taking a walk, even with chronic pain, you're taking a walk. Good job, you got out there to take a walk. But then they get in their heads. Count the cracks on the sidewalk, right? Listen to your favorite music, but actually repeat the words that are coming, that you're hearing, right? Count the cars that drive by. Those are what grounding skills are, those simple things that get you out of the moment that's negative so that you can be in the here and now, that you can enjoy what happens right here. Because when we future trip, what do? And I love that word, future trip. What are we losing when we future trip? Present. One thing that we could be doing right here, right now, but we're tripping out about the future when we have no idea what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, let alone a year, 2 years. Go ahead. Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. Breath work, belly breathing, 4 seconds in, hold, whatever type of breathing you do, guided meditations. So all of these things, and that's why people are like, oh my gosh, that's what grounding is? Yes, that's what grounding is. It's anything that allows you to get back in the moment, to think about positive thoughts, repeat positive self-talk that can reduce your anxiety, depression, anything. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it for 15 seconds like we did with the ice cream. You can do it for an hour. This also, what goes into, where did the thing go? Did I put it over here? The clicker? Oh, I get all excited, you guys, and I like walk all over the place. So this is what goes into the morning ritual piece as well, right? So self-care and morning rituals kind of go hand in hand. Who has a morning ritual? Who wants to share their, wow, of course, because you guys are coaches. Of course you guys have one. What's your morning ritual? Love it. Ooh, I love Miracle Morning instead of morning rituals. I love that. Anyone else? Oh, I did not know that. Oh, well, good. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share their morning routine? Go ahead. That's amazing. Good, good. So again, what I was saying, morning routines don't have to be an hour, 2 hours. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 15 minutes. It's whatever allows you to focus on you and get your headspace. I work out every morning. I have to. If I don't, I'm going to be crab, right? Like, because that's my stress relief. That's what I have to do. And then obviously I do my self-care throughout the day as well. I get up, I do some breath work. I repeat my affirmations throughout the day, right? So it can be all through the day as well. Time management, how much time do I have? Oh, okay, I probably won't go that long, but time management. Is that a scary word for people? Right, I know that when I started, as an entrepreneur, I was very good at my 8 to 5, or I was actually, 12-hour days as a therapist in a hospital, and, get up in the morning, go work out, do my job, go home, do my network marketing business, good to go. I was eating every 2 hours, right? Trying to keep my healthy thing going. And then I became an entrepreneur and that totally went out the window. Honestly, like working from home, I work out of the home 15 hours a week and that's it. And the rest of the time I'm at home. I do telehealth therapy and all of that. It is the hardest thing to remember to eat, right? Or to remember to do this or to do that. How many of you have like a written planner? Or actually, let me do another question. How many of you use your phone as a planner? Okay. How many of you feel stressed out at times? Like we're too busy, right? So I talk about in my book, and I do a lot of talks on combating the I'm too busy mindset. One of the things is the time management piece. So when I started entrepreneurship, back in the day, I was always a planner, like a writing out planner, right? And then I lost it. I don't know, maybe because I got out of school or whatever. And so like the last 15 years, I just haven't used it. I use my phone. And what I found out when I was going through these steps of rediscovering who I was is that because I'm totally type A, it's like ridiculous. Like it causes so much anxiety and stress because I stress myself out about it, right? And I'm like, okay, something has to change. So I invented, yeah, I wish I invented, but I got a planner. One that has 30-minute increments, right? Because what was happening is when I looked at my phone, they didn't have like the 30-minute increments and everything was just kind of together. And then I was like, I have no time in today. Like there's no time for me to do anything today. Because look at 10 o'clock, noon, 1 o'clock, right? So what I have found is that my planner with the 30-minute increments allows me to say, oh my gosh, I got 30 minutes there, right? So I do what's called Schedule Sunday. So I meal prep on Sundays, and then I also do my schedule for the week, although it's, already filled for some stuff. But if I'm missing something like, oh, I got to run this errand, or, oh, I got to call this person, oh, I got to, social media, don't get me started, you guys, I hate it. Like, oh, I got to schedule my post for next week or whatever. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I have no time, I'm like, oh, I got 30 minutes here. I got an hour here. And let me tell you, that has reduced my stress so much because I can no longer say I'm too busy. Because look at in my day, even if I have an hour, most people go around and say, I literally have no time to do anything. If you really step back and look, even if you have an hour, it doesn't mean you're too busy, right? So really trying to combat that I'm too busy mindset. There's 4 other mindset blocks that I talk about in my book. And also there's a free video training on my website as well, just to talk more about the mindset blocks, which may be really helpful for you and your clients to kind of dive into that more and figure out what's blocking them. Like what's the mindset? One is the perfectionist, the superhero, where it's like you have to do everything for everyone. And if you don't do it, you feel like a failure, right? And then there's the perfectionist, and then that I'm not good enough mindset as well. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Something that I do for the time management is, in addition to time, I think of it as task management. So time, task, and energy management. And that helps me have more self-care balance.
Yes.
Like when I know I'm going to be exerting a lot of energy, then I'll allow myself to lower energy, time, task, and then only what needs to be done right now. I'm a recovery type A. So that
We need to talk. I might have to hire you. No. Good. Yeah. I love that. Time, task, and energy management. Do you guys hear that? Very cool. And I know, I don't know what your practice looks like, but there's times where I literally have 7 patients on telehealth, where I sit at my table and I'm on video without a break. So what do you do in those minutes? Huh? Breathing. Literally a lot of breathing. And then even for those, if, usually as therapists, you do 50-minute sessions, you got 10 minutes to write your notes. I can't do that. I'll have to find another time to write my notes, because that 10 minutes, I get up, I dance in my living room with music on really loud. That's one of my favorite things. So I'll turn on Alexa and I'll just jump around for 5 minutes, because I got to release that stress. It's exhausting, right? Sometimes being coaches and therapists, right? So we got to release that stress. And so finding those coping skills that work when you have a busy day and you feel like you can't take care of yourself, right? What can you do for 5 minutes, right? So again, time management. So on Sundays, like I said, and I have my clients do this just to try it to see if it helps them. Because again, as coaches and therapists, we are trying to figure out what works for them. It's not a blanket thing. So like these strength plans are individualized for each of my clients and my patients. So I do clients and patients, whatever, you know, clients, I'll say clients. They're individualized because every grounding skill, every self-care thing is not going to work for the same person. And it's not going to work for the same issue. So please, please remember that. As coaches, if you're working with individuals and you're trying to give them some tools, make sure that it's individualized and not this blanket thing, right? Because they need lots of options to get to their goal that they have, right? And obviously we know about self-care, all that good stuff. Oh, step 5. So there's lots more stuff in here about goals, like attaining your goals. We all know about goals, right? Long-term, short-term. How do you guys feel about making long-term goals? What does that look like for you? What thoughts come up for that?
Well, we have this group has a club, and we set some goals.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in our second year right now. It's a process.
Mhm.
A lot of ups and downs,
Mm-hmm.
but we have clearly stated outcomes, metrics, and then strategies.
Good. So the one thing that's important, and I'm sure you guys know this, but I'm just going to bring it out here real quick, especially when you're working with clients, but even for yourself. So I don't do New Year's resolutions. I do goal setting on my birthday each year. So I'm going to be 40 next week, you guys. That means my goals are going to have to be way big because I'm going to be 40. But anyway, thank you. But, you know, it's a big deal turning 40. It's a big deal. So anyway, so I have to redo my goals for the next year, right? I know you guys are laughing, but I'm just saying, you remember that? It's like this big life.
40 is fabulous. So everybody
I know. It is fabulous, right? But go ahead. Huh? It is. It's totally a limiting thought. Thank you. See? I can acknowledge that, right? So with goal setting, just real quick, it's important, especially with our clients. Like I said, you guys probably know this. But when we ask them to plan a long-term goal, maybe like the 6 months that they're working with you, right? And they're like, I want to get $10,000 in my savings account in 6 months. But I can't do that. It's impossible. It's so important. You need to have daily goals, monthly goals, all of this stuff. And because then when they say this, I had this one guy and he was like, I want to lose like 60 pounds in like 4 months. He's like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm like, well, what are you doing every day to do it? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I just want to lose 60 pounds. Yeah, that's great that you want to get to the end goal. And he's like, so we broke it down together. What are you going to do every day? Well, I'm going to work out this much and then I'm going to eat blah, 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 blah. And then the next day, right? And then we talked about, which is step 5, which I'm going to get to in a minute, complacency. But we talked about that. And then at the end of each month, he had to reflect on the goals, right? So in this packet, there's questions with that, all of that stuff about how to reflect on your goals from the month, at the end of each week, and then when you get to that goal. And we all know about having to have your goals, obviously, like I'm going to lose 60 pounds by December 31st at 5:30 p.m. We all know about SMART goals, right?
and I'm gonna feel great about it, right? 'Cause you can-
Yes. Yep. And then again, if they have a day where maybe they gained 3 pounds for some reason, as women, you know, we fluctuate. So I don't ever use a scale. I'm like, oh wait, this dress feels a little tight, but it's okay, right? So say they gain like 3 pounds and they get to this point where they're blocked. You remind them, what did you do yesterday to get to your goal? Well, I went to the gym and I did what I've been doing. Awesome. What did you do today? Well, I did the same thing. Okay, guess what? It's okay you gained 3 pounds. You're not doing anything different. That means that you're still every single day making progress to that goal, right? So there's just some stuff in there. And then I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. But the last step is strengthening your healthy habits. No, this was just your packet of stuff for the strength plans. Strengthening your healthy habits. So the goal in this stage is to help you get to a position where you can sustain your new, healthier lifestyle. What does the word complacency mean?
Accepting things how they are right now, even though you're not happy.
Kind of, yeah. Comfortable. So as coaches, you have to be very aware of this word. This is the make or break for your clients, and it's make or break for you in your personal life. Complacency. So, for example, in substance abuse, so they'll, someone comes in and they've been sober. It's kind of like the pink elephant cloud, right? Like everything's going great. So I don't have to go to AA anymore. I don't have to do my self-care. I don't have to go to therapy. I don't have to do anything because life is going well. How many of you have had clients where they're making really good progress and then all of a sudden they just stop contacting you? And then maybe they'll contact you in 6 months because they're like, oh my gosh, my life fell apart. As therapists, that happens all the time because we get complacent. So you just worked through steps 1 through 4. You rediscovered who you were. You rediscovered your values. You have this amazing, visualization, your passion, your purpose. You know what you want to do. You've learned to ground yourself, to ground those negative thoughts. Although, again, it's lifelong. You're not going to just get it, right? There's going to be days where the grounding skills work and days when they don't, and that's okay. You may also find yourself going back from stage 1 to 3, 3 to 2. It's okay, because rediscovering yourself is a lifelong process. Anything that happens in your life, relationship, career, health, if it's significant to make an impact on your life, you really need to go back to rediscovering who you are. It may not be as in-depth as the first time, but you need to do that, right? So you can go back and forth through the stages. Just when you make it through doesn't mean you're done and you're healed and things are changing and life's good. So this is, we all get complacent. Life is going great. I can miss my what's it called? Morning magic? Miracle morning. I can miss my miracle morning. Or I can miss going to the gym, or I can skip out on this, or I can skip out on that. And then when life happens, it's not just a bump in the road, it's like a freaking volcano, right? Because we're right back here. I don't have to go through this reality testing. I'm good, blah, blah, blah. You might find yourself getting more busier because you're trying to run away from something because you know that you're not doing your self-care, you're not doing your strength plan. Complacency makes or breaks success. So I really want to encourage you to learn more about complacency and how that may be something that maybe one of your clients is struggling with, and really how to help them get out of that. And that has a lot to do with motivation. A technique that us therapists use is motivational interviewing, really getting them back to their place.
So it's hard for me to not say this because I'm a strategy coach. So the goal is not an exercise. The goal is to help your mind, which the rest of the life. The action step is exercising every day, and the metric is the process. So it's harder to become complacent with lifestyle.
It is, but it isn't. So, for example, and I know we have to move on because I still want to do question and answer. For example, for my clients that are sober, they want to live a healthier life, right? But they have to work every day and they get complacent, right? So it is difficult, but it's not difficult, right? So I totally agree with what you're saying, but some people don't They just want a long-term goal. So it doesn't matter what it looks like or how it sounds or if it's in the right, you know, verbiage or words. Because a lot of our clients come to us and they really don't know even what a goal is. So we have to make it very, very simplistic for them. So when someone, it's about meeting your client where they're at. So when I have as a therapist, when I have a client come in that says, I want to lose 60 pounds, okay, great. I'm not going to change that mindset or the thought for them because that's what they want. And I want to meet them on the same level as what they're coming to me from. I don't want to confuse them anymore, but I totally get where you're coming from and what you said. But just kind of remember that, like, some people talk like that and some people don't. And that's totally okay. Okay, so so complacency, please kind of educate yourself on that. So this stuff is action steps for when I actually give my presentation, not to coaches. We're not going to go over that. I do have ebooks back there. You can order those. Again, you can use them. If you want more info, let me know about that. Oh, and there's, you can put your name in to win like a 20-minute coaching call with me if you want, just to kind of talk about maybe things that you're struggling with or dive a little bit deeper. Again, no, there's no cost to it. Oh yeah, the journals are $27 if you want that. I have lots of free video trainings on my website. So for me, the biggest thing as a speaker is I don't want to get up on stage and sell things at the end because it literally takes away my entire message. And it's not being me being authentic and real. What I do promote is the free stuff, right? Because there is stuff that you can buy on my website. But the free stuff is, there's lots of video trainings on mindset. That's free. I have a lot of resources that I use with my clients that are on my website. So please feel free to go to the website. The movement's on there. You can learn more about that. And then, oh yes, if you text the word enough, I forgot I put this up here. Good, because I was thinking, what's that number again? 31996, you'll get the 5-step checklist, which is kind of a summary of what we just did here. But again, it has like spaces for you to write. So if you text that number, you'll get the 5-step checklist and the top 100 positive affirmations. And I don't text you after that, so don't worry. I don't send like massive texts. Yeah, so everything is on my website. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, there's me in my bathroom. That's me with the I Am Enough cards. But you can get to the I Am Enough cards at my website too. Oh yeah. 31996. And it has to be capitalized, so just text the word enough capitalized to 31996.
Doesn't have the all caps, does it work? I just did capital E.
Oh, it did?
Capital
Oh.
E and then the rest work.
Perfect. Well, good to know. You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I was gonna say, going back to Billy's question about
Yeah.
therapy. Okay.
And then this is what I like to close with my, I know we got 10 minutes, with my saying, which is just this: you are enough just as you are in whatever season you're in. And the more you celebrate and focus on that, the more you will live in your strength.
That should be a song.
So I know we're going to take some questions. So we have like 10 minutes. So yes, any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the reality testing. Yeah, I work with mostly technical people, and several of them have presented years ago. So they think like that. I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they try and get them to build the body of evidence
Good.
that countermands that. So what is your performance appraisal?
Good.
You know, and I've never thought of it as reality testing.
Mhm.
That is
Yeah, it is. Good job. That's good. Okay, so I know Billy and I had talked out there a little bit. Do you guys have any questions about being a therapist? So I'm a licensed, I'm an LCSW, so licensed clinical social worker, which means that I am a therapist. And so I'm licensed in both Michigan and California. And yeah, I've been doing it for 15 years. But It's a little different. It's actually very different as therapists and a coach. So do you guys have any questions about like when you would need to refer to a therapist, what your scope of practice is as a coach?
I say that because I've had clients lately who like my therapist.
So I'm going to be I'm very authentic and real. Okay. You guys know that, I think, by now. I cringe when I hear about coaches that are not certified, only because you are dealing with human lives and you are not therapists. You guys have human experiences, right? Which again, your story can change thousands of lives, right? But there's lots of stuff that you have to be trained on to be a therapist, right? So all of this stuff. So if you have a patient or a client that is dealing with severe depression, you need to refer that to a therapist. If they're having panic attacks or they can't get out of bed in the morning, you can coincide with a therapist, right? Like just because if you refer to a therapist doesn't mean you can't still work with them. But that's when you and the therapist get together and talk, after they sign releases, of course, and talk about like, what are you going to do in the therapy piece? And what am I going to do as a coach, right? Because we are coaches and therapists because we love people. My passion and purpose is to help everyone believe that they're enough. I will go above and beyond to make sure that that happens. You guys are in your niche and like what you do because that's your passion. So we forget that sometimes, right? Like we said earlier with boundaries, we forget our boundaries and we just want to help. So I'm strongly encouraging all of you, if you don't know if you're seeing a client, if they need that extra help, my cards are in the back. Please feel free to call me and say, this is what, obviously confidential. This is what my client is dealing with. Do I need to refer them to a therapist? That doesn't mean they'll go to me, at all. So I will, give them a referral, or if you guys know. If you guys ever have that question, don't ignore it, right? Because we are dealing with human lives here. Billy, did you want to add anything about? It's honestly, it's a struggle to do therapy and coaching. It is. Mm-hmm. And as therapists, we have to have liability insurance. So if I get sued, like we can't walk around, like we have to go through training like every year, the examination, don't even get me started on that. And then like the years of schooling, like I can't walk around and say I'm a licensed mental health therapist when I'm not, right? So get the training, continue to educate yourself, go to these things, get educated, reach out, network. It's okay to tell someone that you don't know. If I need to refer this patient or I don't know how to help you, please do not take on a client just because you want to take on a client when you really have no idea how to help their particular problem. It's okay to say, I don't do this. This is not my scope. And refer them. This is a huge networking place. I'm sure someone in this room would be able to work with that person that you feel like you don't have the expertise to help. Yeah. Oh my gosh, no, not at all. Like, right. And continue to get training in the coaching world. Sorry, thank you for that. Yes, all please go back to school and get your master's, No, it's kind of like what we call continuing education for therapists, but continue to get educated on all the things that are changing, right?
One of the things that I know as a trained coach, with most training coaching programs, they help you distinguish between being a life coach and being a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So when we know the distinction when we're not active within our scope, and we know when we need to.
Yes. And I actually spoke at one of those trainings. They asked me to come in, and I did a training for coaches, the difference between therapy and coaches. And they had a lot of questions. They're, brand new. And I love that they do that because we as therapists love coaches. I mean, we all do the same thing. It's just different, right? So I can never take on a patient that I literally do not have the training to help. I'm not, specialized in EMDR for trauma. I will lose my license and everything I have if I do EMDR with a patient. If I say, yep, I'll take you on, and I try to do it and I'm not certified, I could totally ruin that person's life, right? So it's okay to say you don't know, and then always just make sure you have a referral for them. Don't just say, oh, I don't do that, see you later. Say, let me get back to you and find someone that can help you. Because they're looking for coaching for multiple reasons. Maybe because they need a mentor and they just need someone to talk to, or maybe they need some, whatever it is. Don't ever just say no and then hang up the phone. Any other questions? I know I'm pretty much done. And I was like, I'm not going to go the whole time. All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. Again, I so appreciate it. Don't ever hesitate to reach out at all. Texting is the best way. If you have any questions, anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you. Oh, what is this? Oh my goodness. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thank you so much.
Very
Oh.
much. Thank you.